Hello, here I am. Happy Women's Wednesday, y'all. Welcome to another segment of the Consent is Sexy series. My name is Soul. I am one of the social media influencers for community health, as well as an art educator for Whitman-Walker's new cultural center, The Corner. Thank you. And today we're going to be talking about consent, entitlement, and expectations in general. I want to give people a few more minutes to tune in. Hello, No Filter DC. Hey, Jewel. How's everybody feeling? I'm feeling. I am feeling, and I'm ready to hopefully get a little bit of sun when I'm done with this live. Alright, I'll just go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Soul. My pronouns are she, they. I am a social media influencer, an art educator, host for the Bag series and for Floetic Uptown. Yeah, okay. I think that's all I needed to say about myself. So during the past few months, Whitman-Walker's Community Health Department has expanded its outreach efforts to the social media platform. We cover various topics about HIV, STI, sexual health practices, access to care, social determinants of health, and general public health interventions. Our series of outreach sessions also focuses on the current pandemic, COVID-19, and ways to manage your sexual, personal, and mental health. The community health team is here to educate and support you. Today we're continuing a new series called Consent is Sexy. I wanted to use this platform to facilitate conversations on consent so that we can work towards preventing sexual abuse, harassment, rape, and the effects that those kinds of violations have on individuals and the community. So let's just get right into it. Feel free to jump in and comment if you agree, disagree, if you have other ideas. I would love to hear them and share them with the rest of the audience. All right, so conversations around consent usually revolve around asking and listening. And while these are extremely important things to talk about, there's another factor that often isn't talked about, and that's entitlement. If someone says no, common sense says that any rational thinking individual would understand that and stop there, right? But the problem with somebody who believes they're entitled to whatever that thing may be is that they don't hear the no. They think that they deserve whatever it may be, and therefore the other person's wants or needs are invalid. And of course that isn't true, but the mind can be a tricky thing. So that's why it's important to talk about not just yes and no when it comes to consent, but also entitlement and the factors that it may play. There are different types of entitlement, and it's important to discuss some of the forms that it may take. Someone may believe that the rules that apply to everyone else don't apply to them. In a sexual situation, this might look like that person believing that they don't need to get consent before they do whatever they want to do. Somebody may also be in a mindset that people are more interested in the person in question than they are in those same people, and so it's automatically assumed that the others are around just to please that person or make them happy. Similarly, someone might never take into consideration other people's feelings and how they might be inconveniencing them. And so the idea of how the other person feels never even occurs. And lastly, someone might believe that they are simply better or stronger than others, and so they take charge and push ahead without taking stock of the situation. So let's kind of break these down and give examples of how these different types of entitlements can play out. So the first one is someone believing that the rules that apply to everyone else don't apply to them. And in a sexual situation, this might look like that person believing that they don't need to get consent before they do whatever they want to do. And so like that can take form in the sense of like entitlement to your partner. You think because you're in a relationship that you're entitled to, sexual acts and, pleasure from your partner, and that you don't necessarily have to ask for consent because it's already assumed. And that's not true. Like, you should always be asking for consent from your partner, regardless whether you're monogamous, poly, single, like you should always be making sure that the people that you are engaging and interacting with are consenting. The other example was that somebody may also be in a mindset that people are more interested in the person in question than they are in those same people. And so it is automatically assumed that others are around just to please that person or make them happy. So that can take form in how can I break that down? People are more interested in the person in question that they are in those same people, and so it is automatically assumed that others are around just to please that person or make them happy. Okay, here's a good example. Birthdays, right? It's always somebody's birthday, and attention and focus is always on the birthday girl, birthday boy, birthday person. And so like that person can assume that because it's their birthday that they are entitled to X amount of attention or gifts or X amount of time spent. And you're not entitled to that. Like, you're not entitled to it just because it's your birthday or, it's centered around you a little. I hope that makes sense. Like, people still like, you still need to make sure that the people around you and that are, celebrating your birthday with you are also happy and consenting in whatever is happening. Like, you can't just decide, yes, all my friends brought this, surprise birthday party together for me, and now that means all my friends now have to, like, spend the night, for example, whatever. It's not the case. Like, that's not what they signed up for. They threw you this birthday party, and that was that, and you should take what you got. I hope that was a good enough example, because I'm really trying to make them more generalized and not always about sexual encounters, because consent is important outside of sexual interactions. Yes, some people just see others as extras in their movies. Yes, it's like main character syndrome is what I heard people call it. Like, people think that they're just like the main character. And I mean, like, in all honesty, in your movie, in your life is your movie, and so like you are the main character, but at the same time, like, you're not in a movie. So, like, people are not extras. People are people that you are engaging and interacting with and maybe forming relationships with. Okay. Similarly, someone might never take into consideration other people's feelings and how they might be inconveniencing them. Sometimes people are just selfish. And so they don't care. Like, they just don't care whether you are inconvenienced. And it can even come out in the way that they're inconvenienced, and so that they blame you for how they feel for being inconvenienced. People will transfer the blame onto you if they are inconvenienced. right? Because they just are like, they have main character syndrome, or like they never take into account how other people feel. So they just don't care. Like if they hurt someone's feelings, they don't even notice. And like even in apologizing, if they do notice that they did something wrong, like the apologies are never really that genuine, because they're like still not being considerate of the other person's feelings. I'm going to come back to this example though, because I want to move on and I want to be clearer about what I'm trying to say about that last point. So I will continue to process it and then explain more. Okay, so there are obviously ways that these mindsets can be combated, and now might be a good time to think about whether you or someone in your life shows some of these tendencies in any type of situation. One thing that can be done to make an effort to become more in tune with how it feels when you ask for other people's consent. When you get a solid yes, you now can be sure that the other person is happy in that situation, just like you are. And when you get a no, you've now saved yourself and that other person from a situation that would have been uncomfortable for both parties. So if you feel yourself starting to think something along the lines of, well, I deserve this because XYZ, stop yourself. If you make a conscious effort to notice these things as they arise, you can start to change them and reform them. And then lastly, observe what happens after you followed through with genuinely asking for consent and not feeling entitled. Chances are your relationships will be a lot better and communication will be much more open and honest. And I definitely agree with that. I practice consent and using I practice asking for consent in like that language, like in my day-to-day with everything. Like even something as like simple as like when I'm cooking food for my roommate, like even last night I was like, hey, like are you the type of person who doesn't like other textures in your mashed potatoes, like before I put something in there? It's just, I personally just want the people that I'm around to feel safe and comfortable enough to, be vulnerable, be themselves, and always like feel comfortable with me and know that like I will always do my best to ask for their consent in any situation. And this goes for dating, this goes for friendships, this goes for roommates, this goes for workplace, setting boundaries. Consent is so important. Consent is applicable in all areas of life beyond sexual relationships. Jewel said that. Raisins and mashed potatoes are never okay, though. I didn't put raisins in mashed potatoes. I put spinach, some sweet peppers, and some bacon. Anyway. Yeah, okay, so before I go, it's important to briefly discuss consent, as always, as it's an extremely important concept and quite simple if you don't already understand it. If you have little ones in your life, I really want to encourage y'all to teach it young. Start with something as simple as like letting your toddler choose their shirt for the day, or like, asking them whether or not they want to go outside and play or if they want to sit and play inside, or asking them if they want broccoli or spinach for dinner, because you got to give them their greens, but you have to figure out, you want to start practicing it young in general. And so that when I believe that when consent is practiced like in your day-to-day, it's easier for it to be practiced in romantic relationships and sexual relationships, because assuming things and feeling like you're entitled to things will really, really put you in some uncomfortable situations. Even expecting things, like that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Like having expectations that have not been communicated between both parties is just never going to work out in a way that both parties are going to consent unless there has been clear communication about what can and cannot happen between the two. But the concept of consent is pretty simple if you don't already understand it. More than 50% of rapes of women have happened before the age of 18. So again, teach it young. Consent is as simple as this. If they give you a solid yes, you can go ahead. So like if you're teaching your toddler something, or a young child that is in preschool or something as simple as like sharing snacks. Like if you ask your like something that you could start with, if you ask your friend for a cookie and they say no, you got to be okay with them just saying no and move on. Like eat what you have for lunch, eat your snack and be content with it. And then, come back and ask, like me, this is me talking to my child. Like come back and ask me if I can pack cookies for you, You want to give them, examples, how to handle it, and then give them tools to feel comfortable and safe coming to talk to you about it after. Anything, like I said, if they give you a solid yes, you can go ahead. Anything else is a no and should be taken as such. It is okay to discuss with the other person why they feel uncomfortable in this situation, but that conversation should be solely for the purpose of understanding their perspective. You should not come out of the other side having convinced them to change their mind. Consent can be used in many settings, like I said, not just sexual. For example, your boss may ask you if you feel comfortable doing extra work for the week. And it's important that they know how to ask, and and you know how to respond. Especially in sexual settings, it's extremely important to ask for consent. A simple, are you comfortable with this? Can I do this? Can I touch you here? Are you okay with this? Will suffice most of the time. And lastly, one more time, consent should be enthusiastic and confident. If you get a yeah, it's probably you should just know. You should just know the answer is no. If they don't sound confident, if they are under the influence, if they seem unsure, if they don't say anything at all, if they don't verbally say it, if they nod their head, I would just maybe encourage them to verbally say it so that you can, you've heard it and you've registered it and you've accepted it as consent. Or they can say no verbally. Yeah. I will leave you all with that, but I want to challenge you all to ask yourself if you show any of these entitlement archetypes. And if you do, try to start changing your thinking, whether it occurs in the bedroom or the workplace. A simple yes or a no can change your life. And I also want to add this quote. I'm not sure if she if they wrote it themselves. But my roommate painted this really beautiful piece that's now hanging in my room. That basically says, my no makes way for my yes. And I really love that phrase, because the more you say no to things and the more you practice advocating for yourself, advocating for other people to consent, practicing consent, asking these questions, the easier it'll be for you to say yes when the right things come along, when the right work opportunities come along, when the right relationships come along, when, any type of opportunity. The more you say no to things that don't align with you, the more that you say no to things that are not safe, are not, on your path or whatever it is, the easier it is for things to just flow and your blessings to come in and for you to say yes to those things. So I want to leave y'all with that piece as well. Simple yes or no can definitely change your life. As always, Whitman-Walker is open for free HIV/STI testing by appointment at our Liz location in Northwest DC and our Max Robinson Center in Southeast DC. To make an appointment, you can call 202-797-4439. Social distancing is still a way to reduce the amount of COVID-19 community transmission. It deliberately increases the physical space between people to avoid spreading the illness, especially around the holidays where many people are used to traveling. Make sure that you are Staying at least 6 feet away from other people when possible, wearing a mask in public, avoiding places with large crowds, encouraging work from home if possible, speaking with loved ones over the phone or FaceTime instead of in person. Social distancing is a way to care for your community. And stay up to date on local, state, and national guidelines for testing, quarantine, vaccines, and general safety. Make sure you're continuing to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds at a time. Staying home, feel well. And this is just my personal piece of advice. I know that vaccinations are rolling out and, some of the rules and regulations are lifting a little bit, but I want to encourage people to continue to wearing your masks in public, in private, in groups of 10 and groups of more than 10. Like, it's really important that we are continuing to do our part and keeping each other safe. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and IG at Whitman-Walker, at RealTalkDC _ and at The Corner DC. Stay Alive to Life, Resilience in Times of COVID is our new exhibition that's opening at the Cultural Center this Friday. We'll be opening at 2 p.m. So come through, come see the exhibition, and we'll have an opening reception from 7 to 8. So feel free to come in and celebrate this moment with us as well. Till next time, peace.